The title of this video is Plato and the Global Age: How an Ancient Philosopher Remains Important into the 21st Century. It is common knowledge among peoples of the Western world that the ancient Greek philosopher Plato was very important in our history. His name is taught in every public school. However, less widely known is why and how that ancient personage continues to have importance even into the 21st century. In fact, among the many reasons Plato remains important is his plan for methods of governing. His ideas were set forth around 400 BC in ancient Athens, nearly 2,500 years ago. Of his many writings on the subject, the most important was a book we today call The Republic. It should be no surprise that the works of Plato were very important in the ancient world. However, in the conflicts of the ancient Mediterranean, with the fall of empires, the passing of dynasties, the spread of other philosophies, and the rise of Christianity, his works came to be neglected and forgotten. It was not until 2,000 years after the death of Plato that his writings re-emerged from the monastic archives and were brought to Western Europe. This rediscovery of Plato and rebirth of ancient learning was an event called by historians the Italian Renaissance, beginning around 1450. Although the Renaissance, or rebirth of ancient learning, would have a profound effect across all Europe, it took a number of years to assemble the writings, to study them, and to translate them from the ancient Greek manuscripts. Inevitably, the ideas they contained were susceptible to many interpretations, but eventually they were translated by the scholar Ficino and were interpreted in what might be called a transcendental way, or what historians call a mystical Christian way of understanding. However, the tumult of the centuries following the Renaissance, especially during the wars of law and religion across Europe, the carnage and destruction of what is called the Protestant Reformation, the writings of Plato were once again neglected and forgotten. But that changed during the 19th century in what is called the Age of Empire. Of the many great realms of the time, the German Empire, Austro-Hungarian Empire, Russian Empire, French Empire, and the British Empire, among these, the British Empire was predominant. It was the most expansive empire in human history and included in its realm fully 1/4 of the world population and 1/4 of the habitable territory of the earth. But common among these great realms was the need for a legitimating paradigm of imperial rule that was workable in a secularizing age. In the resulting search, one answer was found in a rediscovery and reinterpretation of ancient Greek philosophy, especially the writings of Plato. The renewed interest and pursuit of ancient learning came to be called the classical or Platonic reception of the 19th century. This phenomenon of learning began in France and Germany with a scholarly emphasis on Greek antiquities, philology, and a precise reading of the manuscripts. It also began a tradition of the Greek classics being taught as a course of study for young men at elite preparatory and aristocratic schools. Yet over time, there developed two different interpretations that reflected opposite ways of understanding the ancient Greeks, especially Plato. In Germany, where the writings of Leibniz, Goethe, and Kant were influential, there developed a Philhellenism that emphasized Bildung, or self-cultivation. The classics began to be studied at the University of Berlin by von Humboldt and Hegel in the spirit of what was called German idealism. Later in the 19th century, a different interpretation arose in England, where, following on Hobbes and Locke, the study of Plato was taken up outside of academic cloisters by an investment banker, George Grote. Those around him, including John Stuart Mill and John Austin, and their successors, Alfred Milner and Lionel Curtis, lived in a world of geopolitical contest and conflict. They read Plato from the perspective of a worldwide Athenian empire and understood him in terms of what was called British realism. The Platonic writings, especially the Republic, set forth an approach to rule established on three levels. At the top, occupying the realm of thought, or logos, was an aristocracy of guardians who presided over all others. They had true knowledge and resided mostly out of public view. Beneath those men was the realm of disciplined action, or ethos, the overseers. These included Army and Navy officers along with judicial officials who held authority to employ force, either military or legal. Finally, at the lowest level were the commoners, with neither knowledge nor authority, only opinion. Driven by appetite and impulse, this laboring multitude lived in the realm of pathos. Yet combined with this three-level structure, there were also two fundamental instruments of Platonic rule. One was the noble lie. Plato assumed that for the good of the common public, it was necessary to deceive them about the circumstances of their existence and how those circumstances were shaped. Along with the noble lie was the idea of the good. That is, a way to understand the necessity for subjection and deception as part of some greater purpose. Hence, the 19th century empires came to justify their actions based on the good they provided. The British, for example, made a variety of claims to justify their expansive rule. Based on Anglo-Saxon racialism, they claimed to fulfill the white man's burden in what they called a civilizing mission for the black, brown, and yellow peoples of the earth. This great project would enforce free trade and regulated factory labor. Along with that, it would launch a missionary program to spread the blessings of Christianity, and most important, it would accomplish these things by an imposed rule of law. However, as it occurred at the beginning of the 20th century, the different classical readings, idealist and realist, were caught in a maelstrom of geopolitics, international rivalry, and war. Beginning in 1914, Britain and Germany were plunged into what came to be called the First World War. Although the war ended by stalemate and armistice, the burden of guilt and reparation imposed on Germany ended its period of empire and its philosophy of idealism. The contest of interpreting Plato had ended as well. Nonetheless, by that time, the influence of the ancient philosopher had already come to permeate the modern world.